This meeting's being recorded, just in case you didn't
I was
hear.
going to say it's 6:20. Oh, 6:30 now. Okay.
6:30? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, Deb Schoppenhorst, she's our lead school psychologist, and I am the lead school social worker. And so we were asked to do the session tonight for supporting your youth emotionally during remote learning, which is a very important topic to all of us. So we are very honored to be here tonight and to be working with you guys and to see parents' faces. It's really awesome to see you guys. And whoever thought that we'd be at home doing a conference with all these people, but we're here and, we're making things work. So we're very happy that you could come tonight. So we will go ahead and get started. So the first part is just, like we do with everything else, we have expectations, right? So you have expectations at home for the kids and we have them at school. And so we have virtual norms as well. And that's just to keep us all on the same page so that we know what's going on. So real quick, so just make sure, if you're doing something that might be distracting to others, turn off your camera. Otherwise, we love to see your faces. Stay muted during the presentation if there is background noise. Use the chat for any questions, concerns, aha moments, and that might come up for you. We definitely want to use that chat as a way to communicate with you. Engage with us. We want to hear from you. And as you heard a little bit earlier, some of you, this is being recorded and it'll be shared with the district. That way other people have the opportunity to listen to it and maybe learn from it later on. And we also have a little visual here. This is a great visual. I have to credit Peggy Cormany for that. She found this little housekeeping using Zoom. So please keep your microphone muted, like we said, so you can see where the mute button is. And it'll have a little cross through it, red, when you are muted. And then click the next to the microphone icon to start or change your audio connection. So, and then we have the chat. So you see that little chat bubble box. This will provide a chat window on the right side of the screen for you that you'll be able to ask questions, give some comments. Please feel free to use that so that we can see what you're thinking. And then also click on this button to use emojis. Yeah, so we have some emojis. We have clapping hands, thumbs up. So we might even ask you during tonight's session, like, give us a thumbs up if you've done this, or, something like that. So your screen should look very similar to this. But if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we can help you with it. All right, so in our district, as a part of our social emotional learning, we have goals in our district. And one of the two goals really is, and one of the practices is we do welcoming rituals and optimistic closures. That's just one way that we can help students and adults to be able to connect with each other and talk and socialize and start off the day positively and end the day positively. So we are going to start off today, with the welcoming ritual. And this is pretty appropriate since Peggy just had that section on the emojis. So what is your most used emoji? Because when you look on your phone, there's going to be one or two that pop up right away, and those are the ones that you use the most. So in the chat, go ahead and you can just put, what is your most used emoji? I believe, if I looked at mine, I believe it is the laughing with the tears, right? So that's the one I have. So go ahead and put in the chat the one that you have, that you use the most.
And they will have to spell it out. They won't be able to use an emoji though, right?
Right. Yeah. Go ahead. You'll have to type out a description. So we are seeing the laughing tears. We're seeing the smile a lot. That was probably so far the most used. Crying, laughing. Mm-hmm.
Those are all very good emojis, that you're laughing a lot and smiling a lot. That's awesome. Okay, keep putting those in, and then we're going to go ahead and continue. So tonight, we're going to be talking some of our objectives. We want to look at some risk factors so that you can help identify warning signs, protective factors, which protect students, warning signs that you should be looking for, and practical strategies and resources. And this is all about emotional learning and emotional health. And so we know that it's a difficult time for all of us. And so We want to make the best of it and give parents, students, and teachers resources that they need so we can still stay on track. So this has been used, in the parent series, and it's really important because our district, we really focus on school-wide social emotional learning. And so we work on skills with students, but it's also our interactions with adults, our interactions with families, it's our interactions when we're in the community. So they all kind of come together. And when, we teach kids, sometimes we think academics when we think of school, but students also need to learn these social emotional skills as well because they're going to be in the community. They're going to have a family and they have caregivers. They're going to be in the schools. They're going to have a job one day. So we want to put all those things together. And so this is kind of the SEL wheel, as we call it, through Castle. And these are the skills that we try to focus on with students. So self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And so all of those things are things that we teach kids, right? So just like we teach them math and reading and writing, we also teach them these skills as well, because they're just as important to be successful and to be contributing to the community like we hope they will be. So there's much more on the website that we'll get into later around that. Okay, so we're here tonight, the social emotional health. So this is very close to us because we work in this field and we work with kids. And so we really want to get this message out, but social emotional health is something that everybody has to work on and everybody has to learn. It's something we all have. We have physical health, we have social emotional health, we have all of that inside of us. So this is something that everybody needs to understand. So social emotional health, it's the ability to understand and manage your emotions, reactions, and relationships. We prioritize social emotional health so children can achieve their full potential. By strengthening family bonds, parents gain confidence and become their child's strongest advocate. So it's really important. You guys are, I feel like with family, I always consider the parents, you guys are the experts on your children. And so getting any information, as a social worker, as a teacher, anywhere else, it helps us to figure out what is the best thing to do and how your student learns and what they need. So we're going to start off with Maslow. So, all right. So Abraham Maslow. So he is was an American psychologist, and he came up with a theory that was a little different first when he came up with it, but now we really use this theory because it makes so much sense. So Maslow, he came up with this theory that there are these series of needs that every single human being has to have, and they build upon each other. So you can see the triangle. So the bottom of the base, that's the biggest one. And those are our physiological needs. So we need air, we need water, food, shelter, sleep, and clothing. If we don't have those things, we really have a hard time making it to the next level of safety, which is health, home, resources, and career. Once we have those two, then we can develop the love and belonging with our friends, family, and connecting with positive relationships. And once we have that, then we can work on our own self-esteem. And then finally, self-actualization. So this really means being the best version of you and being able to be independent and have those strengths within you. So as you can see, they build on one another and it's kind of a series. So we know that kids need the basic foundations to be able to get to the point where they can really feel confident and be contributing to society. So this is an important slide, and we use it a lot now. So pandemic loss. So we just wanted to kind of put that out there because we know that every single person has lost something during this pandemic. And, there's so many things that, we've had to change and do differently. And so we know that it can be more difficult for some than others, depending on the severity of the loss or how that feels to that person. So can you please type in the chat box some examples of losses that you and your students, your children, have experienced during the pandemic? And it can be from little to big. We know there's a wide range. So go ahead and start putting those into the chat. if you want to share, of course. If there's something that you don't want to share, no worries.
We're starting to get some responses: vacations, jobs, social gatherings, family and friends, hugs. That's a big one.
Yes.
Physical contact with others. Daughter's graduation party, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lost sense of the days of the week, right? They all roll together, don't they? Peer interactions, seeing family and vacations. Yeah, lots of good examples. Seeing smiles, right? When we have the masks on, we don't get to see faces.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are awesome. Those are all definitely, we've all felt those. It's like, I saw somebody at work the other day, and it took us both a few minutes to be like, is that Sarah? I think it is. She has her mask. I think it's Sarah. Like, this whole part's all covered up, and we're like, who is that? I think it's Sarah's hair. That has to be her. So yeah, that gets a little bit harder. But we know with all of this, with the pandemic, we've had to adjust, we've had to be flexible. But with loss comes a grief response. Anytime we lose something, we kind of go through a cycle of grief. So, common grief reactions include being shocked, disbelief, or denial that things are happening. It can definitely cause some anxiety, distress, being angry because there's things you can't do or things you were going to do, or the loss of a loved one, periods of sadness. And I like that somebody put not really knowing from week to week, like, is what month is this again? Is it October? Is it September? Because the days just kind of roll into each other because we've lost some of that social interaction. And so definitely periods of sadness can happen where, it just feels like I've been stuck in the same place. How can I move on? And then loss of sleep and loss of appetite. So those are some typical just grief responses that you might see in adult, teens and kids. So risk factors for social emotional difficulties. So risk factors, remember, so a risk is something that increases the likelihood that something might happen. So the risk factors, if you go to the doctor, they'll ask you, do you have a family history of, heart disease, diabetes? And if you say yes, that puts you at a little bit higher risk, to have those things. But social emotionally, we also have risk factors that come from losing things and experiencing grief and all of those things that happened during the pandemic. So some of those risk factors are social isolation, not being able to see people, not being able to do the things we can do. And due to that, we have increased screen time, right? Because what else can we do? Increased access to snacking, which at first was pretty cool, but yeah, then a couple months later, you're like, oh boy. And then decreased movement. So just not having, being able to leave and go walk up, wherever you work, 10 flights of stairs if you have to, whatever it is. Canceled activities and extracurricular events, and change. So those are risk factors. When those things happen, it increases the risk that, it might develop into something that could be, an emotional concern. So I just want to share this with parents because I have to, yeah, as a parent myself, I have to remind myself this all the time. I have 3 daughters, and they're older, but this is something we've had to talk about. So perception is your reality, and so for us and for anyone else, how we perceive things feels very real to us. It doesn't mean that somebody is right or wrong, and that's really doesn't even matter, but we have to at least validate for our kids that their perception is their reality. So if they're feeling down and they're feeling sad about something, and you're like, no, you're not sad. Remember, we went outside yesterday and we did this. So we just have to make sure that we validate it and be like, you're right, it's been really hard and we've had to be inside. Let's start thinking about other things we can do. And so here's some just really great illustrations. Is your glass half full or is it half empty, right? And then we also have the visual on the right. So some people kind of see a chalice or a vase. Other people see two people looking at each other, right? So, and if you really try hard, you can see both. And so that's the goal, is to be able to empathize and just listen and know that, it may not be what you think and it may not be correct to what you know, but it is their reality and they're living it. So just be very respectful of that and open that up to some conversation. Okay, protective factors are great because protective factors actually counteract risk factors. So again, the physical example. So if I have a high risk for diabetes, but I eat really healthy and I eat low sugar and I exercise, that could actually lower the risk that I have to get it. So protective factors are great. The more we have, the more we counteract the risk. So for kids and for families, some of those protective factors that you can engage in, having effective behavioral health care, and that is within our community. Connectedness to individuals, families, friends, community, or social institutions, making sure that we have a network that will take care of us. Having those skills in life that will help us. So being able to problem solve, having coping skills to be able to manage our emotions, and being adaptable to change, right? And being resilient. Having a high self-esteem or a sense of purpose in life is a protective factor. Cultural, religious, or personal beliefs that discourage suicide. So that's kind of another, just talking to kids about how things are going and what's going on. And we've talked about this before, but one positive adult in a student's life can make the whole difference for a kid. Having one positive adult relationship. And that is a protective factor. So we are all protective factors for our kids. And just in connecting with children, talk to your kids about their feelings. So for younger kids, we kind of recommend having a feelings wheel or a chart, although some older kids like it as well still. So, but this kind of just is something that it's a visual for you to say, point to how you're feeling today. And then when they pick that, you can be like, tell me what's happened to make you feel that way. So having just those things around. The other thing that can be very difficult to do sometimes, but it really is so important, is to focus on your child's strengths, right? So everybody has strengths. And the more we focus on their strengths, the more confident they can become. So what are they good at? What do they look like? What do they enjoy doing? What do they, maybe you guys like to do together? Families have strengths as well. So start thinking about those things that your family can do and that your kids are good at, and really highlight those in ways that make them start to feel really confident and kind of, feel like they can do this. Okay, and then your interactions. Of course, your interactions, they mean everything. And many of you, like I can think back all the way, probably back to as long as I can remember. And I still remember some of the most positive and negative conversations and interactions that I've had with, family members or work members or all of those people. And I can think about how some of those positive ones had such a great impact on me. So those interactions with your kids are so important. So make sure our interactions are about love, positive nurturance, and fun, right? Like, so we have to have a little bit of fun and laugh a little bit so that, because we know that that helps us to become happier. So laughing, fun is really encouraged, and just bring that into your home. And, love and that positive nurturing, they're so important. Have more loving, supportive interactions than struggles over behavior or schoolwork. And I know it's very hard because we focus on the things that we need to do right now. Like, I have to get this assignment in, you have to turn this in, come on, let's go, we get it in. And we sometimes find ourselves struggling, right? We're kind of like struggling with each other. And then we have to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, let's get this finished. Let's figure this out. And then how can I support you in doing that? Tell me what help you need. So, and we'll go over that a little bit later. We have some sentence starters that are great. Okay, so one little tip, and this, is something that when I was raised, it was not this way, but this is, in the last 5 years, this has become, through research, we figured out that we need to praise hard work. So focusing on your effort and not really the results. So effort rather than intelligence and ability is the key to success in school and life. So and it's not a bad thing, but sometimes we're just like, oh, you are so smart. You got an A+ on that test. And really what we want to encourage is, how did they get that A on that test? You studied, like you must have studied really hard for that test. You must have worked really hard to build that tower. That was a lot of work. Great job. So we want to try to focus on the middle part rather than what's at the end. And the end isn't always going to be an A+ or a 6-tower building, right? But if they put the effort in, that builds resiliency, it builds grit, and it builds that motivation. So kids learn how to work hard. So focus on the effort, not the results. Like that must have been really, really, really hard, but you studied really hard for that test. And, I'm really proud of you for that kind of work. So just remember that, praise hard work. And for parents, everybody included, just keep up the good work. It's hard. I mean, it's hard right now, and we're all doing our best. And every single child, maybe has a struggle. Some are more significant than others. But if your children are struggling right now, this does not mean that you are a bad parent. It is not a failure. You're doing a great job. We've never experienced anything like this. This is all new to us. So you have to just give yourself a break, and you need to just relax, and you're doing your best. You're working hard, right? So focus on the work, not the outcome. So the hard work that's in the middle. So it's about the process. So you guys are doing great. And we just want to say how great you're doing, because I've been able to, and Deb has also been able to, we've been in some of the classrooms, and we've been helping with some different assessments. And I feel like we're in some of the houses, and some of the parents are, oh, pay attention, turn around, or listen to the teacher. So I know you're juggling a lot. And so please always know, we think you're doing a great job. Keep it simple. So establish routines at home that are easy to follow and easy for you to implement, right? So it has to be something that's easy for you. So don't say, I'm going to check in on you every 3 minutes, because that's not realistic, right? So establish routines. And what we know right now is that there's a lot of things that might not be predictable, but if you can keep some of their routines, even if the routines change, if you can be consistent with the routines, that will help them to be able to cope with the situation that's going on. Get plenty of sleep, exercise or move every day, and of course, proper nutrition, right? So make sure all of those things. So it's kind of simple, right? Get those routines, sleep, exercise, eat well. Okay, and then one area is positive activities. And so this is really an important topic, because it's very simple, but sometimes we overlook it. And so those positive activities, right? So it's really important that we think and brainstorm as a family what kinds of things we like to do and what would be safe right now to do. And let's put it on the calendar. So make it, formal. Like, we're going to do this day. We're going to do this on Tuesday, this on Wednesday. It doesn't have to be big things, but it gives kids that motivation to look at the calendar every day and see, oh gosh, we're going to do this. So, so reviewing and troubleshoot any barriers to follow through with an activity. Like, of course, we'd like to go over to grandma's house, but maybe we can't do that right now. But we could probably go and rake her leaves for her, though, and stay outside. And that would be one way to pay it forward and to, kindness, and give, acts of kindness. So think of how to troubleshoot through the things that you would normally do, and how could you do them differently now, and they'll still be enjoyable and helpful to people. And this is just a little chart that we love to share. So keys to emotional well-being, and you can kind of just look those over, but they're just kind of the basics. Work towards your dreams, use positive self-talk, remind yourself of your progress, give back to others, all of those things that we need physically and emotionally to stay well. So yeah, so there's lots of good ones on there. And then here's the example of just a calendar, right? So August, acts of kindness. So this could be your calendar, and whatever it is that you guys are going to do, if it's play basketball in the backyard, if it's picking up trash for a neighbor, as you can see, there's kind of something over on every single day. And it does motivate kids to think, okay, today's the 22nd, or 23rd. So what are we going to do? We're going to donate old books, and we're going to do this. So I really encourage you, get a calendar, put those things, let your family get together and brainstorm some of those positive things that you can be doing together and to look forward to. And then we have another little chart here as well. Some of it right now is probably, not super safe, but there's some really great ideas on there. So some baking, praise someone, smile. Like someone said, I can't see that. Do a video recording and smile and send it to your close family members. Send some flowers or whatever it is, write a letter. Okay, so we're going to be doing something called breakout rooms. So in Zoom, we have the opportunity to still have small group conversations, but just in a different way. And so you will get an invitation to join a breakout room on your screen. When you get that, click on the button to join. You will leave the main room and you'll be directed to the other room with just a few people. You will still be able to post in the chat for your individual group to see. And we're going to give you guys 7 minutes to talk in small groups. And you'll get a message that breakout rooms are closing in 1 minute. And then you can either wait until that closes and it'll just automatically take you back, or there's a button that says leave breakout room. Just don't click leave the meeting. So just the breakout room. So I think it's super cool. We can virtually do this for each other and get together in these small groups and talk. So in your breakout session, introduce yourself to the other participants. What are some positive activities that you might suggest for your children? You may think of things that other people won't. So this is a great way to generate some ideas with other family members. Be sure to think of items with little to no cost and discuss them with your small group. And so you should be, let's see. So you should be seeing, again, a little invitation that says to go to your breakout rooms.
Yeah, I'm going to press the button right now to open those rooms. And just like your kids probably open their rooms and go to the breakout rooms. So now you guys can do that. So when you get the join button, go ahead and click it. Oh, okay. Oh, what do I do? Gracious.
Welcome back, everyone. Everyone's coming back in. Awesome.
Okay, it looks like we have about 10 that are in right now. And okay, I am going to share my screen and we're going to pick up basically where we left off. What I'd like you to do, if you wouldn't mind, Sarah's going to kind of monitor the chat box. And if you guys have 1 or 2 suggestions of what you might we're going to put on your calendar, go ahead and type those in the chat box, because I think sharing those with more people than we're just in your small group is always great. You might get ideas from somebody else. This is just a little bit of pandemic humor. I think that we can all relate to things being very different right now. We are doing things now that we never dreamed that we might be doing one day. And we have some new roles, and these are just some popular memes that are circulating, and we thought you might get a little bit of a chuckle from it. So I hope you enjoy them, but then we'll move right on into some of the tips that we might have for parents during the pandemic. And we're going to go a little bit more in depth with each one of these bullets, addressing your child's fears, keeping healthy routines, using positive discipline, and practicing self-care. And some of these items we've covered a little bit, so we'll probably go through them pretty quickly. But we're going to talk a little bit about addressing your child's fears. When we think about fears in general, most of the time, fears come from not knowing what to expect. So when our kids have questions, answering those questions simply and honestly with the facts that we know is so important. There is some frightening things in the news right now. There are frightening things happening. People are getting sick. Some people are dying. We've disrupted basically our whole lives at this point. But we can focus on what we're doing to stay safe in our homes and to stay safe with our families. Like, we are wearing our masks. We are staying home, or when we go out, we're keeping our physical distance from people. We're washing our hands frequently. So focus on those things we're doing to stay safe instead of the fear that we may have from all of the news articles or the news programs, and just the news of the pandemic tragedies that are happening. Recognizing your child's feelings and talking about those. Keeping in touch with loved ones. Sarah talked about that a little bit. A lot of times we aren't able to go and visit. Maybe we can't visit the grandparents or the great grandparents. Some of our loved ones may live in assisted living facilities or whatever, where they can't have visitors at this time. So maybe setting up a visual or virtual chat or a video call, a FaceTime, calling on the phone, any way to keep our children reassured that their loved ones are okay. We just can't see them right now. So those are some ideas in that area. Model how to manage feelings. Our children are watching us. They're watching us every day and how we react to stressors that are in our lives. They may mirror those same reactions. So if we're having trouble handling and managing the emotions around the pandemic, they may also. So just keep that in mind. And you can't be a rock for everyone all the time, but keep in mind that our little eyes are watching us, right? Something that may worry your child is maybe you have to leave the house to go to work, or you have to leave to go get groceries or whatever. Maybe they're scared for you to leave. Telling them where you're going, what you're going to do, what you're going to do to stay safe, and when you're going to be home may help to reassure them. Looking forward, something that I read that I thought was an excellent idea is to share with our young children and young students about, there's a lot of scientists and really smart people out there who are working on medicine for this disease or vaccines for this disease. So sharing that with them and helping to reassure them that this is time limited. We don't know for sure how much time yet, but this will be time limited. Offer extra hugs and don't forget to say, I love you. That's so important right now. Keeping healthy routines. Sarah talked about this already. Your typical, if you haven't already established a routine in your home, we would encourage you, please do so. Keep things as consistent as possible. A couple of things about bedtime routine or evening routine. A lot of times that's hard even when we're not in a pandemic. So with a pandemic, it brings more stressors and it may even be more difficult. But keeping those established routines that you already have in place for bedtime would be important. Like maybe you have a routine that's read a book, brush your teeth, go to bed. I know whenever I was raising young children, mine are grown now, but we had that routine of bath time, brush teeth, get jammies on, read a book, go to bed. And whenever we started that bath time routine, you could just see them start to relax. And it was the same every single night. We didn't miss it. So those are a couple of examples. It doesn't matter what order you do them in, as long as you have a set routine. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit about bedtime or bedtime routines really applies more to older kids. And that would be video games or cell phones. It's recommended that you shut those things off, turn them off, put them away at least an hour before bedtime to help get you to kind of shut down and relax. Having a cell phone at your bedside, at your on your nightstand or whatever, can disrupt sleep cycles, can really set you up for some difficult times during the day. So to the extent that it's possible, limit cell phones at nighttime. If you need an alarm, I know a lot of us use our cell phones for alarms. They have alarm clocks at Walmart for $5. I would encourage that, but that of course may be a battle you're not willing to fight. I would just encourage that. Use positive discipline. So there's a lot of points on here, and I'll go through a couple of them a little bit more in depth. Redirecting inappropriate behavior. Sometimes when kids exhibit some inappropriate behavior, it's because they don't know what to do instead. So redirecting them or distracting them from one behavior to another behavior can sometimes stop a behavior and it won't even be an issue anymore. Encourage creativity and creative play. Maybe have them draw a picture of how we're being safe, or build a fort with blankets and pillows in the living room on how we're fighting the germs, or whatever. But you get the idea of try to introduce creativity into their play. Pay attention to appropriate behavior. This is a huge one. This is a really big one. What we pay attention to grows. So let's say we want to pay, a child has just set the table without being asked. If we praise them for that, they're more likely to come back and set the table tomorrow night without being asked. Maybe it's picking up your dirty clothes and putting them in the laundry hamper, or it's putting their schoolwork, getting their schoolwork turned in, or making their desktop area nice and neat. Pay attention to the right choices the kids are making and praise them for those. Using rewards and privileges, you can set systems up in your home. Maybe even especially if like video games are a battle or whatever, or we only want to do video games, maybe you set up a reward system of if you do so many tasks, you get so many minutes on video games. That might be a type of a system that you could put in place in your home. Know when not to respond. Sometimes if a behavior that a child has exhibited is not dangerous or not going to hurt anybody, sometimes just ignoring it will stop. If we give attention to the appropriate behaviors that they are doing. If they know that they get your attention and they get your praise for doing the right thing, they're less likely to do the negative thing. But if we only say, no, stop, don't do that, and they only get that attention when they're doing the inappropriate behavior, then they learn to keep doing that inappropriate behavior because that's how I get mom or dad's attention. So knowing when not to respond is also a good thing to keep in mind. Use of timeout is something that you certainly can use, and I know I used in my home whenever my kids were little. There's some thoughts around timeout. It's really what you're talking about there is timeout away from the reinforcement. So, whatever it is that whatever the reason that you've introduced that timeout might be appropriate, you need to be consistent with that. So you can give a warning and say, if I see that behavior again, you will need to serve a timeout. So, an example I have from that is like my son would throw his controller for his video game when he got mad at the screen. So if I see that behavior again, you will need to serve a timeout. Or another way to flip that is, if I see that behavior again, the video game will be in timeout. And then it takes it away from being a personal thing with your child, and it makes it more of it's an object. So the video game's in timeout. Consider special time in. So that might be scheduling special time with one of your children on a rotating basis. So maybe like if you have 2 or 3 kids, every 2 or 3 days this is Johnny's special time today, and Johnny gets to do something special just with you. And you can't do that every day. There's demands on your time. I understand that, but doing it every once in a while truly makes it special. Avoid physical punishment to the greatest extent possible. So avoid spanking, hitting, any kind of physical punishment. There's risks for accidental injury. It isn't effective in the long term. It can increase aggression, and it doesn't really teach that self-control. It really models that we solve behavior by being physical. So to the greatest extent possible, try to avoid that physical punishment. One way to change behavior in anyone, in a child, in a grown-up, in anyone, is to point out what they're doing right. You can improve behavior by 80% by just pointing out what someone's doing correctly. I like the way that you set the table. I like the way you took out the trash for me. Those are examples of things that are in the home that are very specific. Notice that I didn't say just good job. I specifically said, I like the way you took out the trash, or great job taking out the trash. I needed to define what I'm saying great job for, so they know specifically what they're getting praised for and what they did right. Saying calm down is a common phrase that we use when kids are emotional. But a lot of times we get into a little bit of a pitfall in that, because kids may not know how to calm down. So there are some alternatives to saying calm down. So maybe you would say, I see you're sad. Can you tell me about it? Or you seem really upset. What can I do to help you to calm down or to get back to calm? Maybe you need to give them a few minutes. I'll come back to you in about 5 minutes. I want to make sure you're okay. Maybe it's around an assignment. I can see this assignment's really hard for you. Is it okay if I sit here and help you with it now? So as you can see, these statements or these questions kind of help keep that dialogue open, instead of just saying calm down, which puts the ownership on the child to try to figure out something to help them calm down. This really, you help to guide them through the steps in a calming manner. So what are some guidances or some guidance for helping children of all ages? One of the first things is controlling our own anxiety, right? So part of our anxiety may be related to news sources. And nowadays you can watch news channels 24 hours a day. I do not recommend that. That's not healthy. There is so much negative input that comes from news channels. One thing that I can suggest is have a credible news source, get your information, and then turn off the news. There's so much negative on the news that it really can drain a person. It can drain the most positive person. So also seek out people that support you, grown-ups, adults, other adults who support you. Confiding in your children about topics that maybe are a little more mature than they might be able to handle is a risky endeavor. So please try to find, a sister, family member, friend, whomever it might be, that could help support you. Take care of your physical health. And if your child asks if you're worried, be honest with them. If you're worried, be honest. But also tell them what you're doing. Show them what you're doing to help alleviate some of those worries. Approaching your kids and asking what they know. There's some good open-ended questions that you can use with your kids to kind of get a feel for where they're at with that. With just some of the anxiety around this pandemic time. So maybe some questions would be, what have you heard about the coronavirus? Or where did you hear that information? Let's look it up and see if it's factual or if it's true. Maybe asking them what are their major concerns or worries, what they might be. And maybe you just need a simple question. Do you have any questions that I can help you answer? Or how are you feeling about the coronavirus? So there's a lot of different things here that are options for helping kids to be able to cope with some of the feelings that are around the coronavirus right now. But you can see, empower them by modeling appropriate behavior, provide reassurance to them. Those are all examples. So we have some tips that when parents are feeling overwhelmed, what we can do. These are options. By no means do I suggest you do all of them. These are options. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can change your perspective, break down big problems into smaller problems, evaluate the problem. Is this really a problem? Will it be a problem tomorrow or the next day or the next week? Or is this something that's going to go away? And then reach out for help if you need it. Some people find writing as a wonderful outlet. You can kind of write your feelings down and it puts them away for you. Giving back to others, we talked about that already with making that calendar. You can do that with your whole family, or maybe you need some solo time. And that's an option for you, where you could do some volunteering or help someone out on your own. And then be a model for your child. That growth mindset is so important. Anytime you hear the word I can't or the phrase I can't, fill in the blank at the end of that and say yet. I can't yet. I can't do this yet, but I'm working on it in this way. So those are some tips for when you're feeling overwhelmed on what you might be able to do. We have a short video clip. This is about 90 seconds, and it's really talking about modeling self-care. And we have to take care of ourselves as the grown-ups in order for our gas tank to be full for everyone else that's in our lives. So take just a minute here and let's watch this.
In all of the years, throughout all phases, whether you're talking about your 2-year-old or whether you're talking about your 22-year-old, model, model, model. Kids are watching us. And never forget that our actions speak so loudly that kids can't hear a word that we're saying. So if you say, darling, it's so important that you remain calm while you're having a tantrum, if you come home from work and the first thing you do is grab a beer, you're not modeling positive coping strategies. Instead, not only do you model, but talk out loud occasionally. Talk about how much better you feel after you go for a run, or after you talk to a friend or take a long shower. Just casually mention it. Not only will your children learn, but they'll actually be happy because they want to know that you're taking care of yourself. Speaking of modeling, taking care of yourself, it's not selfish. You deserve it. And if all I cared about was your kids, what I would tell you is that taking care of yourself shows for your child how to be a happy, successful person who can bounce even during difficult times. So it's not at all selfish to take care of yourself. Think about it as a really strategic act of good parenting.
Okay, so remember, keep your gas tank full. We're going to quickly go over some warning signs where that you may see and that may give you a thought that you might need to seek some additional support. So these are going to come in. Here we go. So if you see your child feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks, that may be a sign that they need additional support. If they try to harm themselves or kill themselves, make plans to do so, that's also another sign. Out of control or risk-taking behaviors. This list is pretty long, so I'm going to go ahead and go through it. Sudden overwhelming fear for no reason, and it says with physiological signs. So think of a panic attack, like a heart racing, palms sweating. That level of fear with no reason is a warning sign. Not eating, throwing up, or using laxatives to lose weight. That's a red flag as well, or need for additional support. Severe mood swings that may cause relationship problems. So when we talk about this is not just good days or bad days. Everybody has good days or bad days. These are severe swings in moods that cause relationship problems, so that pushes the people away from them. So that would be a warning sign that we might want to seek additional support. Drug or alcohol use, that would also be a sign. Any drastic changes in behavior, personality, or sleeping habits. Extreme difficulty concentrating, and intense worries or fears that interfere with your daily activities. All of these could be warning signs that additional support is needed. So where do we get that, or how can we get some additional support? You can start with your doctor or pediatrician. You could also connect with other families or family members. Someone else may have gone through something similar to this. You could learn more about mental health and mental wellness. Get a referral to a mental health specialist, Work with your school. We have specialists in our school. We have school psychologists and school social workers in every building. There's also some national resources, and we've got some resources at the end of the slideshow. Locally, your building, like I just said, your building has a school psychologist and a school social worker in the building. If you need to connect with your building-based clinician, call the school for information on how to reach them. Memorial Behavioral Health also has an emotional support hotline that's open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and that phone number is listed there. CARES is a service that really handles the mental health crisis calls for children and adolescents in Illinois. You may have heard it as SAS, but there is a phone number for that if you're in crisis. And then there's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number as well. I think one very important point that you need to remember is that if someone in your life is talking about suicide, making plans for suicide, or talking about hurting someone else or killing someone else, those are immediate needs. Those are immediate needs that may warrant a 911 phone call. We take those threats seriously. We don't mess around with that, and we do get professional help. So those would be some extreme red flags that we would need to act right away. There are some resources and websites. This presentation will be available, so you'll be able to access this, and those links should be live links that you can then go to and get more information. We do have our District 186 SEL website. It has information. I think this was shared in our last presentation, but you can navigate to the Social Emotional Learning website, and there's a lot of information on that site. There's virtual calming rooms. Some of those calming rooms are on our social work websites. We have one on our SEL website, but those rooms take you in, and you can do some calming activities, and they're really a nice way of helping to cope with emotions, big emotions at times. So I'm going to stop sharing here, I believe, and let's see if I can do this. Did I stop sharing? Okay, and I think we have time for some questions, just a few minutes. If there are any questions in the chat box, we can open that up. And oh, great, Sarah put those numbers in the chat box. That is awesome. If there are any questions, you can go ahead and either unmute yourself and ask them, or you can type them in the chat box, and we will be happy to address those. We do have our let's see, I guess maybe I should go ahead and continue to share, because I think that we have a couple of things about upcoming events that are happening. So let me continue with that. Sorry about that, guys. Our last activity is in the chat box. Please share one strategy or tip that you learned tonight that you plan to use within the next week. So we want to make a commitment, because we learn these things and then we go on with our life, and sometimes they don't get implemented. So make a commitment tonight. What do you want to try to use in the next week? And then I will turn it over, I think, to Peggy. I think she has a couple of things to add at the end here.
Hi, hello. Yes, I was just going to share that there will be, which one do we have up there?
The upcoming session for next week.
Okay, the upcoming session for next week, October 29th, is Thursday, and it'll be balancing work, remote learning, rest, and play. And we are having Dr. Nicole Florence from Memorial Medical Center is going to be presenting on that one. It'll be a similar format with question and answer and some content information. And then I don't know if there's another slide.
There is.
Okay.
Remote series number 2.
Yeah, remote series number 2, which I'm going to throw the link in the chat, will be starting in November. And that one will be a 4 series, 4 Thursdays, 3 are in November and 1 is in December. And these will be led by Marty Hewitt, who is a BIST consultant, and Linda Hausman. And they will be going deeper into strategies to use at home. The first one is we're all in this together. Second one is strategies to support calmness. Third one is problem solving to learn and grow. And the last one is strengthening our team as a family. The other thing with that series is there'll be, like I said, there's 4 sessions and they're going to be all online. They'll be an hour. If you attend 3 or 4 of those sessions, you will get a t-shirt. We always work with our parents. And one of the things one of our parents said is, well, let's get a t-shirt for participating. So if you do that, that next series. But before that, next Thursday is one on balancing all this work, remote learning, rest, and play. And it'll be next Thursday at 6:30 also.
Okay. And then is someone putting a link in the chat box for evaluation? I think that's the last slide that we have.
Yep.
I think
So I am posting the link to the evaluation right now. You should have it right there. I'll also email this out to everyone. If you don't get a chance to click it or it disappears for you, I'll go ahead and email it to everyone after we leave this session as well. Just let us know how we did, anything we can improve on, what you got from the session. We'd really, really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. It was nice to see faces.
And I didn't know if there were any questions in the chat or if anybody had a question before we got off.
I didn't see anything in the chat other than some great suggestions and just you guys supporting each other on definitely taking a break, and it's okay for your kids because you're going to come back less stressed and you're going to be ready. So.
And I see wonderful commitments as far as, just using like special time with each of my kiddos, specific praise, reducing physical punishment. Yes, I see excellent suggestions. So great job, parents. Keep it up. Keep up your spirits. We'll get through this. Thank you for coming and for joining us for this hour tonight.
And if you want, you can do one reaction, like a thumbs up or a little one of the reactions for our presenters tonight. That'd be Deb Schoppenhorst and Sarah Teeter. Yeah, let's get some thumbs up, some claps. And you all got, I love what Debbie said, we're doing day to day. It's the end result. Think about every day to day. So we'll get through this. Thank you.